Hello there, and welcome to this quiet corner of the world, away from the hum and buzz of our modern age. Take a moment now, just a moment, to let yourself settle. Like slowly dimming the flame of an oil lamp, allow the thoughts of your day to gently fade away. There's no rush here, no notifications waiting, no screens demanding your attention, just you and the soft refuge of this moment. Perhaps you can feel the weight of your body against your mattress, the gentle give of your pillow supporting your head. Notice the warmth of your blanket as it wraps around you like a protective cocoon. These simple comforts, a warm bed, a quiet room, the blessed silence that surrounds you, would have seemed like pure magic to someone living 800 years ago. Maybe you can hear the distant hum of your refrigerator in the kitchen, that steady, reassuring sound that we barely notice anymore. To a medieval person, such a sound would have been as mysterious and wonderful as any spell. The idea that food could stay fresh without ice, without salt, without the careful tending of a cellar, it would have been beyond their wildest dreams. Feel yourself sinking a little deeper now into this modern sanctuary of yours. Your heating keeps the cold at bay without you having to split wood or tend a fire. Your walls stand strong without you having to mix mud and straw with your bare hands. Fresh water flows at the turn of a handle, and light appears at the flip of a switch. Tonight, we're going to step away from all of this, to visit a time when life moved by the rhythm of the sun and seasons, when every meal was earned, and when the simple act of staying warm and fed required a wisdom that we've almost forgotten. Tonight, we won't be speaking of kings or queens, no epic battles that shook the earth or grand castles that pierced the sky. Instead, we'll listen to something far more intimate, the gentle whispers of everyday life from an age long past. We'll discover the small habits, the quiet tricks, the ingenious ways that ordinary people survived when the world was darker, colder, and filled with so much uncertainty. They were people much like you, people who woke each morning wondering how to keep warm, how to keep fed, how to make it safely through another day. Imagine, if you will, a life without light switches, no soft glow appearing at the touch of your finger, no warm water flowing endlessly from a tap, no apps to summon food to your doorstep with a few gentle taps on a screen, no weather forecasts to tell you if tomorrow will bring sunshine or storms. Picture yourself in that world, where there was only you, your own cleverness, and the long night stretching ahead, where every flame had to be coaxed to life, where every drop of water had to be carried, where every scrap of food had to be found, grown, or caught with your own hands. How did they do it? How did they not just survive, but find moments of comfort, even joy, in a world that seems so harsh to our modern eyes? Tonight, we'll uncover their secrets, not the grand ones written in history books, but the small, forgotten wisdoms whispered from parent to child in smoky cottages and humble farmhouses, the kind of knowledge that helped them sleep soundly, even when wolves howled in the forest beyond their doors. If these stories I'm about to share bring you even a small measure of peace tonight, if they help quiet the busy chatter in your mind, you might consider giving this episode a gentle like, or perhaps leaving a comment to let me know where in the world you're listening from. But there's no hurry for any of that. You could do it tomorrow, or next week, or never at all. Your sleep matters more than any of those things. What matters now is simply this moment. You resting comfortably, ready to let your mind drift to a simpler time. A time when the pace of life moved as slowly as honey dripping from a wooden spoon. When people had no choice but to live in harmony with the natural rhythms of day and night, season and weather. You're safe here in your warm bed, surrounded by all the marvels of the modern world. But tonight, we're going to step away from all of that, to visit a place where time moved differently, where every small comfort was hard-won, and where the wisdom of survival was passed down like precious heirlooms from one generation to the next. So take a deep breath now. Feel your chest rise and fall. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper into your pillow. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and allow yourself to drift back. Back through the mist of centuries. Back to a time when the world was lit only by flame and starlight. Can you hear it? That first faint echo from a house long forgotten. The soft creak of old wooden beams settling for the night. The whisper of wind through gaps in stone walls. The gentle sounds of a life lived close to the earth. Come, let's listen together. Part 1. The hum of daily life, secrets of the medieval home. Close your eyes and breathe in. Can you smell it? The rich, earthy scent of damp soil after rain. The sweet mustiness of rotting wood deep in an ancient forest. The green, living smell of moss creeping up weathered bark. This is where our story begins. Not in a grand castle or bustling market square, but in the quiet wisdom of the woodland. Picture yourself as a peasant woman. It's early morning, perhaps 700 years ago. You're walking barefoot through the wet grass, your rough wool dress catching dewdrops that glisten like tiny jewels in the pale dawn light. You don't have a refrigerator humming in your kitchen, because you don't have a kitchen at all, not as we know it. You don't even have electricity, or running water, or any of the 1,000 conveniences that keep our food fresh and safe. But you do have something else. You have an old oak tree. At the edge of your small plot of land stands this ancient giant, its trunk so wide that 3 people holding hands couldn't wrap their arms around it. Lightning struck it decades ago, splitting it open, and time has slowly hollowed out its heart. To most people, it might look like nothing more than a dying tree, but to you, this is your pantry. You approach the tree now, glancing around to make sure no neighbors are watching. Thieves are always a concern, and animals too. Rats and foxes and hungry birds that would love to discover your secret. You press your hands against the rough bark and peer into the dark hollow within. The air inside feels different, cooler, damper, almost alive. You reach in carefully and feel around until your fingers touch the smooth, waxy surface of a wheel of cheese. Precious cheese that you made just last week from your cow's milk. Next to it, wrapped in cloth, hangs a piece of dried meat, salted and smoked until it's hard as leather, but will last for months. And there, tucked safely in the deepest part of the hollow, is your most treasured possession. A small clay pot filled with honey. Golden, sweet honey that you traded for at the last market day. In this world without sugar, honey is more valuable than silver. The tree keeps these treasures cool and dry, protected from the heat of summer and the dampness of winter. The thick walls of living wood insulate better than any man-made structure. The first refrigerator didn't run on electricity. It ran on the slow, natural decay of an ancient oak. You replace everything carefully, making sure no telltale crumbs fall to the ground below. This hollow tree is your insurance against hunger, your secret bank account in a world where such things don't exist. But hollow trees weren't the only way medieval people preserved their food. They had another trick, one so strange that when archaeologists first discovered it, they could hardly believe their eyes. Imagine now that you're standing at the edge of a bog, one of those marshy, waterlogged places where the ground squelches beneath your feet and strange mists rise on cold mornings. The water here is dark as tea, stained brown by centuries of decaying plants. It smells of earth and age and secrets. You're carrying something precious, a large wheel of butter, perhaps 20 pounds of creamy yellow fat that represents weeks of work. Your cows gave their milk. You churned it for hours until your arms ached. You pressed and shaped it with your own hands. This butter could feed your family through the lean winter months, if you can make it last. But butter spoils quickly, especially in warm weather. So you do something that would seem impossible to modern minds. You're going to bury it in this swampy ground. First, you wrap the butter carefully in birch bark, layer after layer, sealed tight with pine resin. Some people use linen cloth, but bark works better. It's nature's own waterproof packaging. Then you lower your precious bundle into the dark, acidic water of the bog. The bog is a magical place, though you don't understand the science of it. The water here is so acidic and so starved of oxygen that nothing can rot, nothing can decay. Time itself seems to stop. Your butter will rest here in this cold, dark bath for months, maybe even years. When you finally dig it up, it will be perfectly preserved, though it will taste different, earthy, smoky, like the bog itself has flavored it with its ancient mysteries. Centuries later, archaeologists will find these buried treasures, wheels of bog butter thousands of years old, still perfectly edible. They'll marvel at this impossible preservation, this alchemy of acid and time that turns swampland into storage. You don't know about anaerobic environments or pH levels. You only know that your grandmother showed your mother, and your mother showed you, and somehow, impossibly, it works. Feel the cool mud squishing between your fingers. Thick, wet clay mixed with water until it has the consistency of cake batter. Your hands are covered to the wrist now, cold and slippery, as you knead this ancient mixture. There's a smell here too, the earthy scent of wet straw, sweet and grassy, mingling with something else, something less pleasant but absolutely necessary. The sharp, dry smell of animal dung, crumbling like old leaves in your palm. This is how walls were born in the medieval world, not from the smooth, sterile concrete slabs that surround us today, but from this humble mixture of earth and straw and, well, whatever the animals left behind in the barnyard. Picture the walls of your modern home, flat, white, painted surfaces that reveal nothing of their making. They stand rigid and silent, sealed tight against the world outside. Now imagine something completely different. Walls that breathe, that expand and contract with the seasons, that actually participate in the life of your home. You're standing beside the wooden frame of a house, thick oak posts rising like ancient trees, connected by horizontal beams that will support the roof. Between these sturdy bones, you're going to weave the flesh of your home, and it begins with gathering. Walk with me into the woods behind your cottage. Feel the morning dew soaking through your rough leather shoes. You're looking for something specific. Young branches, green and flexible, that bend without breaking. Willow is perfect, or hazel, or any wood that's still young enough to remember being alive. These branches, some as thin as your thumb, others thick as your wrist, will become the foundation of your walls. Back at the house frame, you begin the ancient dance of weaving, threading each branch horizontally between the vertical posts, over and under, like braiding a giant's hair. The branches interlock and hold each other, creating a loose mesh, a basket large enough to live inside. This is the wattle, and already you can see how it will work. Strong enough to hold weight, flexible enough to move with the wind, and full of gaps that are waiting to be filled. Now comes the daub, and this is where your hands get truly dirty. In a large wooden trough, you begin mixing your building materials, clay soil, rich and sticky, dug from the riverbank where it's been waiting for centuries. Add water slowly, working it with your hands until it becomes smooth and workable. Then comes the straw, handfuls of it, cut short and mixed in to give the clay strength and flexibility. The straw fibers will hold everything together, like hair in plaster or steel rods in concrete. And then, the secret ingredient that makes medieval people chuckle and modern people wrinkle their noses. Manure, cow dung, horse droppings, whatever you can gather from the farmyard. Don't turn away. This isn't about being dirty. It's about being clever. The animal waste adds binding agents, tiny fibers, and surprisingly, it helps control moisture and insects. It's nature's own additive. And it works. You scoop up handfuls of this mixture. It's cool and surprisingly pleasant to touch, like wet clay in a pottery studio. Working from bottom to top, you press it into the gaps between the woven branches, smoothing it with your palms, filling every space until the wattle disappears completely beneath a thick coat of daub. The wall takes shape slowly, inch by inch, handful by handful. It's not perfectly smooth like modern drywall, but has gentle curves and undulations that follow the natural imperfections of the wood beneath. As it dries, the surface becomes lighter in color, hardening into something remarkably strong. What you've created is ingenious in ways that modern builders are only now rediscovering. These walls are cheap, made entirely from materials you can find on your own land. They're excellent insulators. The thick daub and trapped air keep your home warm in winter and cool in summer. Most remarkably, they breathe. The clay naturally absorbs moisture when the air is humid and releases it when the air is dry, automatically regulating the climate inside your home. There are trade-offs. Of course, your house might not smell like a vanilla candle shop. There's definitely an earthy, organic scent that speaks honestly of its origins. But at least it's warm through the coldest winter nights, and you know exactly what went into building it, in the most literal sense possible. When rain falls, these walls don't fight the water. They absorb what they need and shed the rest. When wind blows, they flex slightly rather than standing rigid. When the seasons change, they expand and contract naturally, healing their own small cracks. Touch the wall now, in your imagination. Feel its slightly rough texture, still faintly cool and damp. Notice how it curves gently around the wooden posts, how it seems somehow alive, somehow organic. This isn't just a barrier between inside and outside. It's a participant in your daily life, breathing with the rhythms of weather and season. Watch the flames dance. See how they flicker and leap, casting moving shadows that seem to bring the walls themselves to life. Orange light washes across rough wooden beams, making them glow like amber, while darker shadows pool in the corners like gentle secrets. Feel the warmth spreading outward in invisible waves, not the even, controlled heat of central heating, but something more alive, more primal. the kind of warmth that reaches into your bones and reminds you that fire was humanity's first magic. Breathe in slowly. There's smoke in the air, sweet wood smoke from oak and apple logs, mingling with the rich, savory smell of something cooking. Onions, perhaps, and herbs, and the deep earthy scent of vegetables slowly surrendering their essence to a bubbling pot. This is the heart of the medieval home, not tucked away in a corner behind decorative stones, but right here in the center of everything. Forget the elegant fireplaces you might imagine, those brick-lime beauties with their neat mantels and tidy hearths. This is something far more primitive and, in its own way, far more wonderful. Picture instead a shallow depression in the floor, a circle of stones perhaps 3 feet across, blackened by years of use. No chimney rises above it, no flue carries the smoke away. The fire burns openly in the center of the room, and the smoke simply rises. Around this fire pit, the entire household revolves like planets around the sun. It's evening now, and the family has gathered as they do every night when darkness falls. There are no electric lights to flip on, no lamps to illuminate distant corners. This fire, these dancing flames, they are the only light in a world grown dark. A heavy iron pot hangs above the flames, suspended from a thick wooden beam by a blackened chain. Inside, tonight's dinner bubbles gently, a simple pottage that will feed the family until their bellies are full and their hearts content. Pottage. The word itself sounds humble, but this thick, nourishing stew is the backbone of medieval cuisine. Into that pot has gone everything available, perhaps some barley or oats, whatever grain could be spared from the stores, onions from the garden, their sharp bite mellowed by long, slow cooking, cabbage leaves, adding substance and nutrition, maybe a few precious herbs, thyme gathered from the hills, or sage dried from last summer's garden, and if the family is fortunate, if a chicken has grown too old to lay eggs, or if they've managed to trade for some meat, there might be a few morsels of protein swimming in that rich, thick broth. The pot never truly empties. Each day, new ingredients are added to what remains from the day before. The pottage evolves constantly, sometimes thick as porridge, sometimes thin as soup, always nourishing, always different. It's a living thing, this meal, growing and changing with the seasons and the family's fortunes. The mother stirs with a long wooden spoon, tasting, adjusting, adding a pinch of salt here or another handful of herbs there. The children sit cross-legged on the earthen floor, close enough to the fire to feel its warmth, but far enough away to avoid the occasional spark that jumps from the burning logs. The father works by firelight, perhaps mending a tool or carving a new wooden spoon, his hands moving with the easy familiarity of a lifetime's practice. But look up into the shadowy rafters above your heads. There, barely visible in the dancing light, hang other treasures, strips of meat, carefully cut and salted, dangle from hooks driven into the wooden beams, not close enough to the fire to cook. That would ruin them, but close enough to catch the gentle, persistent kiss of smoke that rises from the flames below. This is passive smoking at its most elegant, a technique that turns time itself into a preservative. The smoke up there is cooler, gentler than the heat near the flames. It wraps around those strips of meat like an invisible blanket, slowly drawing out moisture, slowly infusing them with flavors that will last for months. Day after day, week after week, the smoke does its patient work. Your dinner is cooking in the pot below, but next month's dinner is being marinated in the rafters above your head. It's a system of breathtaking efficiency. The same fire that lights your evening, that warms your family, that cooks tonight's meal, is also preserving food for the lean times ahead. Nothing is wasted. Every wisp of smoke, every glowing ember, every moment of heat serves multiple purposes. When bedtime comes, the fire will be banked, not extinguished, for that would mean starting again from scratch tomorrow, but carefully covered with ash so that it smolders through the night. In the morning, a few gentle breaths and some dry kindling will coax it back to life, ready to begin another day of cooking, warming, lighting, and preserving. Feel the sharp prick against your skin, tiny thorns catching at your wool sleeves as you brush past, each one a miniature spear designed by nature herself. There's a brief sting, then the warm trickle of a tiny scratch on your forearm. But listen, can you hear them? The gentle rustling in the dense branches above your head, the soft chirping and chattering of a dozen different birds who have made this thorny maze their home. Reach out carefully and pluck one of the small, dark berries hanging in clusters just within reach. Roll it between your fingers first, feeling its smooth skin, then place it on your tongue. The taste is sharp, almost bitter at first, then mellowing into something wild and complex. The concentrated essence of autumn, tart enough to make you pucker slightly, but satisfying in a way that no cultivated fruit could ever be. This is not like the fences you know, not the straight, sterile lines of wooden boards or the cruel efficiency of barbed wire. This is something altogether different, something alive, breathing, growing, changing with every season that passes. Picture instead a wall that lives and breathes, a barrier that grows taller and stronger each year, that flowers in spring and bears fruit in autumn, that provides shelter for countless creatures while keeping your precious livestock exactly where they belong. This is the hedge, the living fence that medieval farmers didn't build so much as cultivate. It begins with an idea that seems almost too simple. Why cut down trees to make dead fences when you could grow living ones instead? The medieval farmer walks his property line in early spring, marking out where his boundary should run. But instead of digging post holes or splitting rails, he plants. The seedlings go into the ground carefully spaced. Young hawthorn saplings mostly, their roots bare and vulnerable. Each one no taller than a child. Blackthorn too, its branches already showing the fierce thorns that will one day make this fence impenetrable. For the first year, they look like nothing much. A scraggly line of twigs barely knee-high, vulnerable to rabbits and deer and the casual trampling of livestock. But the farmer is patient. He knows what time and nature can accomplish together. In the second year, the magic begins. The saplings have grown, not just taller, but stronger, their trunks thickening, their roots digging deep into the earth. Now comes the art that separates the medieval hedge builder from a simple tree planter. He takes each young trunk and carefully bends it, not enough to break it, but enough to encourage it to grow horizontally rather than straight up. Working in late winter when the sap is down and the wood is flexible, he weaves the young branches between each other, over and under, creating a living lattice. Some branches he cuts part way through and then bends, a technique called laying that encourages massive new growth from the wounded wood. The hedge begins to thicken, branch intertwining with branch, thorn meshing with thorn. By the 5th year, something remarkable has happened. What began as a few scattered saplings has become a wall, a dense, impenetrable barrier of interwoven wood and sharp thorns that stand 6 feet high and several feet thick. No cow can push through it. No sheep can squeeze between its branches. Even determined thieves think twice before trying to force their way past those thousands of needle-sharp spines. But this fence does so much more than simply mark boundaries. Medieval people didn't build walls. They grew them. And in growing them, they created something far more valuable than any dead barrier could ever be. In spring, the hawthorn explodes into clouds of white flowers, filling the air with their sweet, heavy scent. Bees arrive in droves, turning the hedge into a highway of buzzing activity. The flowers become berries, dark red haws that feed both birds and humans through the lean months of winter. When winter firewood runs low, the farmer can safely harvest wood from his hedge, cutting back the new growth, which only makes the fence grow thicker and stronger the following year. The thorny prunings themselves become valuable. Dried and bundled, they make excellent kindling that catches fire quickly and burns hot. The hedge becomes a world unto itself, a narrow ecosystem running along the edge of the farm. Wrens nest in its thorny depths, safe from larger predators. Hedgehogs curl up beneath its shelter during the cold months. Field mice create invisible highways through its base, and hawks perch on its highest branches, scanning the fields for prey. In autumn, children venture carefully into its edges, gathering the wild fruits that civilization has largely forgotten. Sloes for making winter wine, rose hips rich in precious vitamins, blackberries that stain fingers purple and provide sweetness for long winter nights. This living fence asks little and gives much. It needs no nails or boards, no metal posts or wire. It repairs itself when damaged, grows stronger each year, and provides food, fuel, and shelter, while performing its primary job of keeping the wandering animals exactly where they belong. Touch one of those thorny branches now in your imagination. Feel how solid it is, how alive, how perfectly designed for its purpose. This is architecture that breathes, that changes with the seasons, that works with nature rather than against it, a multifunctional ecosystem, disguised as a simple fence. Place your hand against the smooth, grey surface. Feel how cool it is, even on this warm summer afternoon. The stone draws the heat from your palm instantly, like a gentle thief stealing warmth and storing it somewhere deep within its ancient heart. Think for a moment about your modern refrigerator, that tall white box humming quietly in your kitchen. You pull the handle. The door swings open with a gentle whoosh of cold air, and bright light floods out, illuminating neat shelves lined with bottles and containers. It's a marvel of engineering, compressors and coolants, electrical circuits and precise temperature controls, all working together to keep your food fresh and safe. Now imagine something altogether different, something that achieves the same goal through the simple genius of stone and shadow, patience and placement. You're standing in a medieval home, but not near the central fire where the family gathers. Instead, you've moved to the north wall, the side of the house that the sun never touches, where even on the brightest summer days, cool shadows linger like faithful servants. Here, built directly into the thick wall itself, you discover something remarkable: massive slabs of stone. Slate, usually, dark grey and split into sheets as thick as your hand, have been carefully fitted into the wall like enormous shelves. They're not delicate things, these stone shelves. Each one weighs as much as a grown man, and they're set so deeply into the wall that they seem to be part of the house's very bones. Touch one of these shelves now. Even though the air around you might be warm with summer heat, the stone remains cool, almost cold. It's not just cool on the surface. The coldness goes deep, all the way through, as if winter has taken up permanent residence within the grey stone. This is the medieval refrigerator. No motor humming, no electricity flowing through hidden wires, no complex machinery at all. Just the cold patience of stone doing what stone does best, remembering. You see, stone has a long memory when it comes to temperature. While the air around it might heat up during the day and cool down at night, the stone changes slowly, reluctantly. It takes time to warm up, and once cool, it stays cool for a very long time. The thick walls around these shelves protect them from the sun's heat, and the stone itself acts like a massive battery. But instead of storing electricity, it stores coldness. Watch as the household uses this simple miracle. A clay pitcher filled with fresh milk from the morning milking gets placed carefully on the stone shelf. Feel how the cool stone immediately begins drawing heat from the warm milk. Not quickly, like an electric refrigerator, but steadily, patiently. By evening, that milk will be as cool as if it had been kept in ice. Yet there is no ice here, no mechanical cooling, just the ancient wisdom of stone and shadow, a wheel of precious butter, soft from the warmth of being shaped by human hands, finds its place on another shelf. The stone welcomes it with its cool embrace, firming the butter, slowing the processes that would otherwise cause it to spoil. Day after day, the butter will keep, protected by nothing more than the steady coldness radiating up from the grey slate below. Cheese, too, loves these stone shelves. Wheels of hard cheese aging slowly, developing their complex flavours in the cool, stable environment that only stone can provide. Bread wrapped in cloth stays fresh longer here than anywhere else in the house. Even precious honey, thick and golden, benefits from the gentle coolness that keeps it from crystallizing too quickly. The beauty of this system lies in its simplicity. No parts to break, no fuel to burn, no complicated maintenance required. The stone shelves simply are. As reliable as sunrise, as steady as the seasons themselves. In winter, when the air grows cold, the stone shelves remain just slightly warmer than freezing, perfect for preventing valuable food from turning to ice. Generation after generation of families have depended on these stone shelves, mothers teaching daughters exactly where to place each type of food, how to arrange things so the cool air can circulate properly, when to move items higher or lower, depending on how much coldness they need. There's something deeply satisfying about this technology, if you can even call it technology. It requires no factory to manufacture, no complex supply chain to maintain. Any stonemason can build it from materials found in the local quarry. It will outlast the house itself, long after the wooden beams have rotted and the wattle and daub walls have crumbled. These stone shelves will remain, still cool, still patient, still ready to preserve whatever treasures are placed upon them. Feel that coolness one more time. Let your hand rest on the smooth stone surface and marvel at this simple miracle. No electricity, no moving parts, no complex chemicals, just stone, doing what stone has always done, enduring, remembering, keeping faith with the rhythms of heat and cold that govern all life. Part 2. Walking with shadows, navigating a world without light. Cup your hands together and imagine holding something precious, something small and warm that radiates gentle heat against your palms. Feel that subtle warmth spreading through your fingers, not burning, but comforting, like holding a smooth stone that's been sitting in summer sunlight. There's a faint scent too, the sweet, earthy smell of wood smoke, so light you might almost miss it, mixed with something wild and organic, the smell of leather cured by hand, or perhaps the hollow interior of an animal's horn. In your world, fire comes instantly. A flick of your thumb across a lighter's wheel, a twist of a knob on your gas stove, the satisfying click of an electric ignition. Fire appears like magic, obedient and immediate whenever you command it. But imagine a world where fire is not a servant to be summoned, but a living thing to be carefully tended. A precious resource that, once lost, might take hours to recover. Picture yourself in a medieval cottage as morning light filters through the small windows. The fire that warmed your family through the night has burned down to glowing coals. Deep red embers nestled in a bed of soft white ash. These coals a treasure. Each one a small sun still holding the memory of yesterday's flames. You're preparing for a journey, perhaps to the market town several hours' walk away, or to visit relatives in the next village. The path will take you through dark forests and across open moors where no shelter waits. When evening comes, you'll need fire for warmth, for light, for cooking. But you won't have the luxury of your home hearth. So you perform an ancient ritual, one that would seem impossible to modern minds. You reach into the glowing coals with a long iron spoon, carefully selecting one ember that glows brightest, a coal about the size of a walnut, red hot and pulsing with stored energy. Working quickly but carefully, you surround the glowing coal with dry tinder, perhaps moss gathered from the north side of oak trees, where it grows thick and silver soft, or maybe amadou, a special fungus that grows on birch trees and burns like paper when properly prepared. Some travelers prefer fine wood shavings, thin curls of birch bark or pine that catch fire at the slightest breath. The coal nestles into this bed of tinder like a jewel in cotton, still glowing, still warm, but insulated enough that it won't burst into flame. Over this, you add another layer, coarser material that will burn more slowly, dried grass, perhaps, or strips of inner bark that will smolder for hours without flaming. Now comes the container, and here, medieval ingenuity truly shines. Some travelers use a hollowed-out horn, a cow's horn or ram's horn, carefully cleaned and fitted with a tight-fitting wooden plug. Others prefer a special leather pouch, thick hide sewn double and treated with fat to make it fire-resistant. You place your precious bundle inside, seal it carefully, and tuck it close to your body, where your own warmth will help keep the ember alive. Then you begin walking, step after step along muddy paths and rocky trails, through forests where ancient trees block out the sun, and across windswept hills where nothing grows but gorse and heather. Hours pass. Your legs grow tired. Your shoulders ache from your pack. But in your pouch, something miraculous is happening. The ember sleeps, but doesn't die. Fed by just enough air seeping through the tinder, it maintains its life, glowing, waiting, patient as only fire can be. As evening approaches and the first stars appear, you reach your destination. Perhaps a clearing where other travelers have camped before, marked by a circle of blackened stones. Your legs are weary, your stomach empty, but you're not worried about the gathering darkness. You have something more precious than gold in your possession. You open your fire bundle with careful hands, and there it is. The ember has done what embers do best. It has endured, still glowing, still warm, still holding the promise of flame within its red heart. You place it gently in a nest of dry leaves and grass, then lean down and blow, softly at first, then with growing confidence. The tinder catches, thin wisps of smoke rise, then suddenly, magically, flame blooms like a flower opening to the sun. In moments, you have a proper fire crackling in the stone circle, light pushing back the darkness, warmth driving away the chill, and the means to cook your simple supper. Fire isn't something you create, it's something you carry with you, something you nurture and tend like a silent traveling companion. That ember made the journey with you, sleeping peacefully in its nest of tinder, waiting for the moment when you would need it most. Breathe in deeply. Can you smell it? That rich, fatty scent hanging in the air. Not unpleasant exactly, but unmistakably animal. The smell of cooking meat, but not quite. Something being burned rather than roasted. It's the smell of rendered fat meeting flame, sweet and smoky and utterly foreign to your modern nose. Now watch the light. See how it wavers and dances, casting long, distorted shadows that stretch and shrink across the rough walls, like ghostly fingers reaching through the darkness. Picture first the candles of the wealthy, pure white pillars of beeswax, smooth as silk and sweet as honey when they burn. These are treasures beyond the reach of ordinary people, so precious that they're reserved for churches and the homes of nobles. When a beeswax candle burns, it gives off a clean, steady light and fills the air with the gentle fragrance of wildflowers and summer meadows. But you are not wealthy. You are a peasant, a craftsman, a simple person trying to stretch every precious resource as far as it will go. You cannot afford beeswax candles any more than you could afford silver spoons or silk clothes. So you make do, and in making do, you create something that serves the same purpose, if not with quite the same elegance. Your light begins not in a chandler's shop, but at the edge of a marsh, a wet, boggy place where rushes grow thick and tall. These are not the decorative grasses of a garden, but sturdy, practical plants, tall as a person, with stems full of soft, white pith that's perfect for your purpose. You wade into the marshy water, feeling the mud squelch between your toes, and cut armfuls of the straightest, thickest rushes you can find. Back home, you sit in the morning sunlight and begin the careful work of preparation, peeling away the tough green outer skin of each rush, leaving only a thin strip to hold the soft white pith together. This pith is the secret, spongy and absorbent. It will soak up fat like a wick soaks up wax. But first, it must be dried, spread out in the sun for days until it's completely moisture-free, pale and light as dried flowers. Now comes the part that transforms these simple marsh plants into sources of light. And this is where your kitchen scraps become treasure. Every time you cook meat, every time you render fat for cooking, you save the leftovers. The bits of sheep fat that you've trimmed from a leg of mutton, the lard left over from butchering a pig, even the grease that drips from a roasting fowl, into an iron pot over your fire. You melt this collected fat, watching it bubble and spit as it renders down into liquid gold. The smell fills your cottage, rich and meaty, the concentrated essence of every animal that's contributed to your little hoard of grease. One by one, you dip your dried rushes into the hot fat, watching as the pith greedily soaks up the liquid, becoming heavy and slick and dark. You dip each rush again and again, building up layers of fat until the pith is completely saturated, thick as your finger and ready to burn. When evening comes and darkness begins to creep through your windows, you light your homemade candle, holding the fat-soaked pith to the glowing coals of your fire until it catches. The flame that springs to life is not the steady, dignified glow of beeswax. It's smaller, more uncertain, flickering and dancing with every breath of air. The light it casts is warm but weak, enough to illuminate a small circle around where you sit, but leaving the corners of your room in deep shadow. It throws strange, wavering patterns on the walls, your own shadow looming large one moment, shrinking the next, as the flame gutters and flares. And the smell. The smell. Your rushlight fills the room with the aroma of whatever animal fat you've used. If it's sheep fat, there's a lanolin richness, woolly and warm. If it's pig fat, the scent is more familiar, like bacon cooking slowly over a fire. If you've been fortunate enough to use goose fat, the smell is almost festive, like a holiday feast in the making. It's not romantic. This smoky, smelly light that wavers and sometimes gutters out entirely when a draft catches it wrong. You won't find rushlights in poetry about love or beauty, but it's practical in the way that only true necessity can be. It's bright enough that you won't trip over the cat sleeping by the fire, sufficient for mending a torn shirt by its flickering glow, adequate for the simple tasks that fill your evening hours. Your medieval room might smell exactly like tomorrow's breakfast, but at least you can see what you're doing. Close your eyes now, really close them, and let your world shrink to nothing but sound. Listen. Can you hear that distant ringing? Faint as a whisper, but clear as crystal. It might be bells. Church bells, perhaps, calling across the valley with their bronze voices. Or maybe it's something smaller, more intimate. The gentle tinkling of a cowbell, or the soft splash of water flowing over stones. In this world of pure sound, every noise tells a story. Every echo draws a map. Think for a moment about your phone, that miracle device that knows exactly where you are at every moment. You open an app, and instantly a satellite in space calculates your position, draws a blue dot on a colorful map, and speaks to you in a pleasant voice. In 200 yards, turn right. You never have to wonder where you are or how to get home. The invisible network of technology has made being lost nearly impossible. Now imagine something altogether different. Imagine being wrapped in fog so thick that you can barely see your own hands. You're somewhere on the moors, miles from home, and the mist has swallowed the world completely. The familiar landmarks that guided you here, the old oak tree, the stone wall, the hill that looks like a sleeping giant, all have vanished into the grey soup that surrounds you. Your eyes, those faithful servants that usually tell you everything about your location, have become useless. But your ears, your ears are about to become your most precious allies. Stand very still and listen. Let the sounds of this fog-wrapped world wash over you like invisible waves. There, do you hear it? The deep bronze voice of a church bell tolling in the distance. Not just any bell, but one with a voice you recognize. Every church in the countryside has its own distinct tone. Some bells ring high and bright, like silver coins dropping into water. Others boom low and solemn like distant thunder. The bell you're hearing now, you know this voice. It's the bell of St. Mary's in Little Wickham, and you know from long experience that it sits exactly 2 miles southwest of where you started your journey this morning. The bell is calling for evening prayers, just as it has every day for 300 years. And in doing so, it's telling you exactly where you stand in relation to home. Listen more carefully. There's another sound threading through the fog. A different bell entirely, smaller and more musical. The bell of St. Peter's in the next valley over. You can hear both churches now, their voices weaving together in the mist. And suddenly, you understand your position like reading words on a page. St. Mary's to the southwest, St. Peter's to the northeast, which means you're standing exactly where the old drover's road crosses the stream. Home lies directly south from here, but wait, there's something else. A smaller sound, more intimate and immediate. The gentle tinkling of cowbells, moving slowly through the fog somewhere ahead. Every farmer in the district puts bells on his livestock, not just to find them when they wander, but to help travelers like you navigate the invisible landscape. Those bells tell you where the paths are, because cattle and sheep always know the easiest routes home. You begin walking toward the sound of the bells, your feet finding the worn track that countless hooves have beaten into the earth. The fog swirls around you like a living thing. But you're not afraid now. You have guides that no mist can confuse. The cowbells lead you along the old familiar path, their gentle chiming drawing you safely through the maze of ditches and boggy ground that would trap an unwary traveler. Sometimes the fog plays tricks. Sounds seem to come from strange directions, or fade entirely when you need them most. But you have another tool, one that works even when the world falls completely silent. You cup your hands around your mouth and call out, a long, wordless shout that echoes off into the grey nothing. Listen to what comes back, the sound of your own voice returning to you, but changed by its journey through the mist. If it comes back quickly, sharp and clear, you know you're near a wall or cliff face. If it returns slowly, muffled and distant, you're approaching the edge of a forest where the trees will swallow sound like hungry mouths. If it comes back from multiple directions, you're in a valley where the hills will bounce your voice back and forth like a ball. You clap your hands sharply, 1, 2, 3 times, then listen as the echoes return. The time it takes tells you distance. A quick return means you're close to something solid. A slow return means you have room to move. Your ears become your eyes, painting a picture of the invisible landscape through nothing but reflected sound. A dog barks somewhere in the fog, not wild or threatening, but the comfortable, familiar bark of a farm dog, announcing a stranger's approach to his master's yard. You know this dog, old Rex, who guards the miller's cottage, which means the mill stream is just ahead, and beyond that, the bridge that will take you safely across to the lane that leads directly home. Step by step, sound by sound, you navigate through the fog-wrapped world, guided by bronze bells and cowbells, by echoes and flowing water, by the bark of a faithful dog and the ancient wisdom that understands how sound travels through mist and darkness. Your ears become your eyes, drawing maps from melody, finding direction in the choir of the invisible world. Feel the prickle against your skin, tiny stems of dried grass poking through the rough linen, making you shift and adjust as you try to find a comfortable position. There's a rustling sound every time someone moves, the whisper of straw beneath bodies, like wind through a wheat field, and the sounds, the sounds that fill the darkness around you. A deep rumbling snore from the corner where the master of the house sleeps, not the gentle breathing of one person, but a symphony of different rhythms. Someone coughs, A wet, rattling sound that speaks of too many damp winters. A child murmurs in sleep, speaking words that make no sense, lost in whatever dreams children find in the deep hours of night. And underneath it all, the soft sounds of breathing. 8, 10, maybe 12 people all sharing the warm air of this single room. Forget everything you know about bedrooms. Forget the idea of privacy, of personal space, of quiet sanctuaries where you retreat from the world. In the medieval house, sleep is a communal activity, as shared and public as eating dinner or working in the fields. Picture this room, not a bedroom as you understand it, but the main living space of the house, transformed by darkness into a temporary dormitory. The family sleeps here, of course. Mother and father, children of all ages, perhaps an elderly grandparent whose bones ache too much for hard work, but who still has wisdom to share. But they're not alone. There's the hired man who helps with the harvest, a young fellow from the next village who works for his meals and a place to sleep, the serving girl who tends the fire and helps with the cooking. She has no home of her own, so this becomes her home too. Sometimes there are travelers, merchants or pilgrims who've paid for a night's shelter, strangers who become temporary members of this sleeping community. All of them together in one room, lying on pallets spread across the floor, covered by whatever blankets and cloaks they possess, but feel the mattress beneath you. It's not just ordinary straw. Run your hands along the linen ticking and notice how it crinkles differently in some places. Softer here, more aromatic there. The straw has been mixed with something precious. Handfuls of dried herbs gathered during the brief summer months when such things grow wild and free. Breathe deeply and smell the lavender. Purple flowers dried until they're brown and brittle, but still holding their sweet, clean scent. There's mint too, leaves that release their sharp, refreshing fragrance every time you shift position. And something else, something more bitter and medicinal. Wormwood, perhaps, or pennyroyal. Herbs chosen not for their beauty, but for their power to repel the tiny creatures that would otherwise make sleeping a misery. Your bed might be a potential insect colony, but at least it smells like an herb garden. These herbs are more than just pleasant scents. They're medieval pest control, nature's own insect repellent. Fleas hate lavender, bedbugs avoid wormwood, lice flee from the sharp oils in mint and pennyroyal. Every time you move, you crush a few more leaves, releasing fresh clouds of protective fragrance into the air around your sleeping place. But something strange happens in the deep hours of the night, something that would puzzle modern sleep researchers, but seems perfectly natural to these medieval sleepers. Around midnight, maybe a little later, people begin to wake up, not all at once, but gradually, naturally, as if their bodies follow some ancient rhythm that has nothing to do with alarm clocks or schedules. This is the time between first sleep and second sleep, a gentle waking that's as much a part of the night as sleeping itself. Listen to what happens in this quiet hour. Someone sits up and pokes the banked fire, coaxing it back to life with a few gentle breaths. The serving girl might get up to check on a sick calf or add more herbs to a pot of brewing medicine. The master of the house uses this time for prayer, quiet words whispered into the darkness, thanking God for the day's blessings and asking protection for the night ahead. Sometimes there's soft conversation, husband and wife discussing the next day's work, an older child asking quiet questions about adult mysteries, the travelers sharing stories of the road in voices barely louder than whispers. These are the most intimate hours of the day, when guard is down and truth comes easier than during the busy daylight hours. After an hour, maybe less, the sleepiness returns. Eyelids grow heavy again. Conversation fades to murmurs, and one by one, the household settles back into their straw mattresses for the second sleep that will carry them through until dawn. Listen to the silence, not the comfortable quiet of a modern night, but something deeper, more complete. This is the silence that comes when the last embers have died in the hearth, when the last voice has whispered good night, when even the wind holds its breath. It's a silence so profound that it seems to press against your ears like water, a silence that makes every tiny sound, the creak of a settling beam, the scratch of a mouse in the thatch, the distant cry of an owl, seem unnaturally loud and somehow significant. Your modern nights are never truly dark. There's always light seeping in from somewhere. Street lights, house lights, the soft glow of electronics painting gentle illumination across your walls, and the sounds, the comforting hum of civilization, traffic in the distance, the neighbor's television, the reassuring drone of your heating system. These sounds tell you that you're not alone. But here, in this medieval night, darkness is absolute. A thick, living thing that presses close against the windows and seeps through every crack in the walls. And in this darkness, silence reigns supreme. A silence that feels pregnant with possibility, heavy with unseen presence. Feel how small you are, how vulnerable. Your walls are thick, yes, but they're only mud and straw and wood. Materials that seem suddenly fragile against the vast unknowns that populate the night outside. The darkness beyond your door isn't empty. It's full, crowded with things that daylight keeps at bay, but that emerge when the sun abandons the world to shadow. This fear isn't just about not being able to see, though that's part of it. When you can't see your hand in front of your face, when familiar objects become strange shapes in the darkness, when every shadow might hide a threat, the simple act of moving through your own home becomes an act of faith. The medieval night is alive with supernatural presence, and everyone knows it. This isn't superstition in the way modern people use the word. It's simply fact, as real and undeniable as the sunrise or the changing seasons. The darkness brings them out, the things that hide from holy daylight but thrive in shadow. Devils walk in the night, not the metaphorical evil of modern understanding, but actual creatures with claws and burning eyes and breath that smells of sulfur. They prowl around houses, looking for cracks in both walls and faith, seeking ways to slip inside and corrupt the sleeping souls within. Fairies too, not the gentle, gossamer creatures of children's stories, but dangerous beings who steal babies from their cradles and replace them with changeling copies that look right but feel wrong. The spirits of the dead don't rest easy. They wander the darkness, some seeking peace, others seeking revenge, all of them hungry for contact with the warm, living world they've lost. Listen, was that the wind, or something else, that soft scratching at the walls? Is it just a branch blown against the house, or something with claws testing the strength of your defenses? The absolute silence makes every sound seem ominous, every noise a potential threat creeping closer in the darkness. So you take precautions, small rituals that your grandmother taught your mother and your mother taught you. Not elaborate ceremonies or complex magic, but simple, practical protections that have kept families safe for generations beyond counting. Above the door, hanging from a wooden peg, dangles a braid of garlic, not because you particularly enjoy the smell, but because every creature of darkness abhors it. The sharp, honest scent of garlic is like a barrier that evil cannot cross. A declaration that this house belongs to the living, not the dead. Near the threshold, almost hidden in the shadow of the doorframe, stands an iron knife, not for cutting bread or carving meat, but for something far more important. Iron, cold iron, is anathema to the supernatural world. You check these defenses every night before sleep. Touch the garlic to make sure it's still strong and fresh. Feel the cold weight of the iron blade in your hand. These aren't the actions of a frightened child. They're the sensible precautions of someone who understands that the night is not empty, but full of possibilities, some wonderful, some terrible, all of them beyond human control. Sometimes you hear them, the things that hunt in darkness, a scratching at the shutters that's too deliberate to be wind, footsteps that circle the house but leave no tracks in the morning, voices calling your name from the forest, voices that sound almost like people you know, but not quite right, not quite human. But your protections hold. Your garlic and iron and prayers form a circle of safety around your sleeping family. The darkness may press close, may test your defenses, may whisper temptations and threats through the cracks in your walls, but it cannot enter, not while you maintain your vigilance, not while you respect the old protections. Part 3. The body as a fortress. Medieval health, hygiene, and misconceptions. Feel the grittiness against your teeth. Tiny particles of charcoal, rough as fine sand, scraping against enamel with each movement of your finger. It's not unpleasant exactly, but it's nothing like the smooth, creamy paste you're used to. This is rougher, more honest somehow, like rubbing your teeth with the very essence of fire itself. There's a dryness too, the charcoal powder absorbing moisture from your mouth, leaving your tongue feeling slightly parched and strangely clean. Taste follows texture, not the cool, sweet freshness of mint toothpaste, but something more complex, more earthy. There's a bitter edge from the charcoal itself, the concentrated memory of burned wood. Salt adds its sharp, mineral bite, making your mouth water even as it cleanses. And underneath it all, the herbal notes, perhaps the green freshness of dried mint leaves, or the more medicinal sharpness of sage, ground to powder and mixed into this ancient dental care. Think for a moment about your modern bathroom. That tube of brightly colored toothpaste with its promise of whitening and fresh breath. You squeeze a neat ribbon onto your soft bristled brush, and it tastes of artificial mint, sweet and cooling, designed to make your mouth feel fresh and clean. It's a product of laboratories and marketing departments, scientifically formulated to appeal to modern sensibilities. Now imagine something completely different. A time when dental care was not about aesthetics or pleasant flavors, but about the simple, urgent goal of keeping your teeth in your head long enough to live a useful life. Your medieval tooth care begins not in a pharmacy, but at your own hearth, with a selection of the right wood for burning. Not just any charcoal will do. You want hardwood, oak or beech perhaps, something that burns clean and hot, leaving behind charcoal that's pure and free from resin or impurities. You take a few pieces from your cooking fire, chunks of wood that have been burned until they're black all the way through but haven't yet crumbled to ash. The charcoal cools in the morning air, losing its red heat but retaining its transformed nature. Wood that fire has purified, concentrating its essence into something harder and more useful than the original timber. when it's cool enough to handle. You place it on a flat stone and begin the patient work of grinding, using another stone as a pestle, crushing the charcoal until it becomes powder, fine as flour, black as a moonless night. This powder is your foundation, but charcoal alone is too harsh, too abrasive for daily use. So you add salt, precious salt, traded from distant shores or boiled from seawater in great iron pans. The salt adds its own cleansing power, its ability to draw out impurities and fight the corruption that would otherwise rot your teeth from within. Then come the herbs. And here, medieval dental care reveals its surprising sophistication. Mint, if you can get it. Dried leaves from summer's garden, crushed between your palms until they release their sharp, green fragrance. The mint doesn't just make the mixture more pleasant to taste. It contains oils that fight the bad humors in your mouth, keeping breath sweet and gums healthy. Sage is even better, a more medicinal herb, bitter and strong, known to strengthen teeth and heal bleeding gums. You crumble the dried leaves into your mixture, watching as the grey-green powder mingles with the black charcoal and white salt. Some people add rosemary for its preservative qualities, or thyme for its power against corruption. The result is a powder that looks nothing like modern toothpaste, a gritty, dark mixture that speaks honestly of its ingredients. You store it in a small pot or pouch, keeping it dry and ready for daily use. When morning comes and your mouth feels stale from sleep, you don't reach for a plastic brush. You dip a clean linen cloth into your powder, or simply use your finger, loading it with the dark mixture. Then begins the careful work of cleaning, rubbing the powder against your teeth in small, circular motions, feeling the charcoal scrape away the night's accumulation of food and corruption. It's harder work than modern brushing, more deliberate, more mindful. You can feel the charcoal doing its work, its mild, abrasive action polishing away stains and build-up, while its natural antibacterial properties fight the invisible enemies that would attack your teeth. The salt draws out poison. The herbs add their healing power, and slowly, thoroughly, your mouth becomes clean. You spit the dark mixture into the rushes on the floor, black spittle that will be swept away with the day's other debris. Then you rinse with water, swishing and spitting until the worst of the grit is gone, leaving behind a mouth that feels genuinely clean. Feel the cool dampness against your skin. A large leaf, thick and substantial, conforming to the shape of your swollen knee like nature's own bandage. It's surprisingly cold, not the sharp, biting cold of ice, but a gentler coolness that seems to seep right through your skin and into the aching joint beneath. The leaf is heavy with moisture, its surface slightly waxy but soft, molding itself perfectly to every curve and hollow of your injury. Breathe in and notice the scent, not unpleasant, but unmistakably vegetable. There's something green and earthy about it, like freshly turned soil after rain, mixed with the slightly pungent smell of raw cabbage. It's the honest smell of something living, something that was growing in the garden just moments ago, still carrying the essence of sunlight and earth in its thick, pale green flesh. When pain strikes in your modern world, you know exactly what to do. Open the freezer, grab a bag of frozen peas or a gel ice pack, wrap it in a thin towel, and apply it to the injury. The cold numbs the pain immediately, reduces swelling, makes everything feel better within minutes. It's convenient, effective, and available 24 hours a day with the simple pull of a freezer door. But imagine a world without freezers, without ice packs or instant cold therapy. A world where pain and swelling must be treated with whatever grows in the garden behind your house. Picture a child, perhaps 8 years old, running through the farmyard in his bare feet, chasing chickens or playing some game that children have always played. His foot catches on a stone, and down he goes, tumbling hard onto his knees, scraping skin and jarring bones. His mother comes running from the house, wiping flour-covered hands on her apron. In your time, she would head straight for the medicine cabinet, searching for bandages and antiseptic, ice packs and pain relievers. But this medieval mother doesn't turn toward the house. She turns toward the garden, past the herb plot where sage and thyme grow in neat rows, past the onions with their green shoots reaching toward the sky. She goes straight to the cabbage patch. Here, broad leaves spread like green umbrellas, each one as wide as a dinner plate and thick as leather. She selects the largest, most perfect leaf she can find, one that's fully grown but still tender, heavy with a morning's dew. With careful hands, she breaks the leaf free from its stem, not tearing it, but snapping it cleanly so that the thick ribs remain intact. The leaf is substantial in her hands, heavier than you might expect, dense with water and nutrients, perfect for what she has in mind. Back to her crying child she goes, but she's not finished preparing her remedy. Taking the leaf to a flat stone or wooden chopping block, she picks up the handle of her knife, not the sharp edge, but the heavy wooden handle. With deliberate, gentle taps, she begins to bruise the leaf, not enough to tear it, but enough to break down the cellular structure, to release the juices trapped within. You can hear the soft thudding sounds as the knife handle meets the leaf, and with each tap, tiny droplets of clear liquid begin to appear on the surface. The leaf grows damper, more pliable, as its own moisture is coaxed to the surface. This isn't random violence against a vegetable. This is a careful technique, designed to release the healing properties that nature has locked within the plant's cells. Now she's ready. Kneeling beside her injured child, she gently lifts his leg and places the prepared cabbage leaf directly over his swollen, scraped knee. The leaf conforms immediately to the shape of the injury. The effect is almost immediate. The child's crying begins to subside as the cool moisture from the leaf soaks into his inflamed skin. The cabbage leaf draws out heat from the swollen tissue, providing the same kind of relief that your ice pack would offer, but in a gentler, more gradual way. But this medieval remedy does more than just provide cooling relief. Cabbage contains natural compounds that fight inflammation, substances that scientists today recognize as having genuine healing properties. The leaf doesn't just feel good, it actually helps reduce the swelling, speeds the healing process, and protects the wound from infection. The mother secures the leaf in place with strips of linen, creating a bandage that will stay put as her child returns to his play. Throughout the day, the cabbage leaf continues its quiet work, keeping the injury moist and protected, drawing out inflammation, providing steady, gentle relief. When medicine failed, when there were no doctors to consult or apothecaries to visit, medieval people turned to their vegetable gardens, not because they were primitive or ignorant, but because they understood something that modern medicine is only now rediscovering, that nature's pharmacy is vast and sophisticated, that healing compounds grow in the most ordinary places. Feel that cool dampness against your skin once more, the substantial weight of the leaf. It's gentle conforming pressure, the way it seems to draw pain right out of your body. This is healing that asks nothing from technology, just the wisdom to know which plants will help, and the patience to let them do their ancient work. Feel the warm steam rising around you, gentle clouds of moisture that carry the scent of herbs and soap, wrapping your skin in humid embrace. Listen to the soft sounds of water lapping against wooden sides, the gentle splash as someone settles deeper into their bath. There's a persistent myth about medieval people, a story told so often that many accept it as truth. The tale goes that people in the Middle Ages were filthy, that they never bathed, that they lived in squalor and saw cleanliness as somehow sinful or dangerous. This image of unwashed peasants and grimy nobles who avoided water like the plague has become so embedded in popular imagination that it's almost impossible to dislodge. But it's wrong, almost entirely wrong. Step with me into a medieval town on market day, through the narrow streets where merchants hawk their wares and craftsmen work at their trades. Follow the sound of voices and splashing water, and you'll find yourself at one of the most important buildings in the community, the public bathhouse. Here, steam rises from multiple large wooden tubs, each one carved from a single massive tree trunk and lined with soft linen. The water is hot, heated in great cauldrons over roaring fires, then carried by bucket-bearing servants to fill the individual bathing vessels. This isn't just about getting clean, though cleanliness is certainly part of it. The bathhouse is a social center, a place where people gather to relax, to conduct business, to catch up on gossip and news. In one tub, two merchants discuss a trade agreement while soaking away the dust of long travel. Nearby, a group of women chat about their children while enjoying the luxury of hot water and leisure time. Servants move between the tubs, offering services that would seem familiar to anyone who's visited a modern spa. Back scrubbing with rough cloths, hair washing with soap made from ash and herbs, even simple meals for those who want to make an entire afternoon of their bathing experience. The wealthier patrons might enjoy wine or ale while they soak, turning their bath into a genuine social event. The soap itself is a marvel, not the harsh, caustic cleanser you might imagine, but something surprisingly sophisticated, made from wood ash and animal fat. It's been scented with herbs and flowers, creating a product that's both effective and pleasant to use. But not everyone can afford the luxury of the public bathhouse. So bathing happens at home too, in ways that would surprise those who believe the unwashed myth. Picture a peasant cottage on the evening before a holy day, perhaps Easter or Christmas, when cleanliness becomes especially important. The family has been preparing all week, and tonight is the night for the ritual bath. In the center of the main room sits a large wooden tub, not as grand as those in the public bathhouse, but substantial enough to hold a grown person. The preparation takes hours. Water must be heated pot by pot over the fire, then carried carefully to the tub until there's enough for a proper bath. This is precious water. Every drop has been heated at the cost of firewood and time, so it won't be wasted. The family bathes in order of importance. Father first, then mother, then the children from oldest to youngest, each adding a bit more hot water to refresh the bath. They understand something that the myth makers have forgotten. That cleanliness is not just about comfort, but about respect. The decline of public bathhouses came later, not because people suddenly decided that cleanliness was evil, but because of very practical concerns. When plague swept through Europe, when diseases spread like wildfire through crowded towns, the bathhouses became suspect, not because bathing was bad, but because gathering in warm, humid spaces with many other people proved dangerous during epidemic times. Religious authorities also began to frown on the bathhouses, not because they opposed cleanliness, but because these social centers had developed reputations for activities that went beyond simple bathing. Some bathhouses had become places where prostitution flourished, where gambling occurred, where the social mixing of classes and sexes created moral complications that made church leaders uncomfortable. So the bathhouses closed, not because people lost interest in being clean, but because social and medical pressures made them impractical. People continued to bathe at home, continued to value cleanliness, continued to wash their hands and faces daily, even if full baths became less frequent. Feel the warmth spreading through your chest, not the sharp heat of fever, but a gentle, balanced warmth that speaks of health and harmony. Notice how your body seems to know what it needs. When you're too warm, you seek coolness. When you're too dry, you crave moisture. Your skin feels neither clammy nor parched, but perfectly balanced between wet and dry. Your breath comes easily, neither too fast nor too slow, carrying with it the perfect temperature that your body requires. Now imagine understanding your entire existence through these simple sensations, hot and cold, wet and dry, not as separate feelings, but as the fundamental forces that govern all life, all health, all the mysterious workings of the human body. In the medieval world, medicine rested on a foundation that seems almost poetic in its simplicity. The belief that your body contained 4 precious fluids, each with its own nature, each contributing to the delicate balance that meant the difference between health and sickness. Picture these fluids flowing through your body like 4 different rivers. First, your blood, warm and moist, carrying life and vitality through every vessel and vein. Blood was the humor of spring, of youth, of optimism and energy. When blood dominated your constitution, you were sanguine, cheerful, active, with a rosy complexion and a quick laugh. Feel the cooler current of phlegm, that thick, moist humor that governed winter and old age. Phlegm was not just a substance you coughed up when ill, but a vital fluid that kept your body properly moistened, that brought calm and stability to the other, more volatile humors. A phlegmatic person was peaceful, thoughtful, slow to anger, but perhaps also slow to action. Then came the bile, first yellow bile, hot and dry as summer itself. This was the humor of ambition and anger, of quick decisions and fierce passions. Finally, the most mysterious humor, black bile, cold and dry as autumn's dying leaves. This melancholic humor governed deep thought and creativity, but also sadness and contemplation. An excess of black bile could plunge you into despair, but in balance, it brought wisdom and artistic inspiration. Every person carried all 4 humors, but in different proportions, creating the endless variety of human temperament. Your particular mixture of blood, phlegm, and the 2 biles determine not just your personality, but your susceptibility to different illnesses, your preferences in food and weather, even your destined profession. When illness struck, medieval physicians didn't see random infection or mysterious disease. They saw imbalance. Something had disturbed the careful equilibrium of your humors, allowing one to dominate the others, creating the symptoms that brought you pain. Feel yourself burning with fever, your skin hot and dry, your mouth parched, your body radiating heat like a stone left too long in summer sun. The treatment followed logical principles. If you were too hot and dry, you needed foods and medicines that were cold and moist. The physician might prescribe cucumber, with its cool, watery nature, or fish from cold streams, or lettuce that grew in shaded gardens. These weren't random folk remedies, but carefully chosen substances designed to restore balance by adding the missing qualities your body craved. Sometimes more dramatic intervention was needed. And here, medieval medicine employed its most famous and misunderstood tool, bloodletting, the deliberate opening of a vein to let excess blood flow out. Wasn't the barbaric torture that modern people imagine. To medieval physicians, it was a logical response to excess heat and moisture in the system. If your humors were unbalanced by too much hot, moist blood, then removing some of that excess made perfect sense. The physician would choose the location carefully. Different veins for different ailments, different amounts depending on your age and constitution. Feel the gentle pressure of warm hands on your shoulders, soft palms that speak of countless hours spent kneading bread, spinning wool, tending fires. These are working hands, capable hands, hands that have delivered babies and eased suffering and witnessed the great mysteries of life and death. They support you now with quiet strength, neither urgent nor hesitant, but steady as the rhythm of breathing itself. Listen to the voices around you, not the sharp commands of medical professionals, but the soft murmuring of women who understand. Whispered prayers drift through the air like incense. Holy Mary, Mother of God, mixed with gentle encouragement. Breathe with the pain. Don't fight it. And practical advice passed down through generations. Let your body do what it knows how to do. Breathe in the fragrant smoke that fills the room. Herbs burning in small braziers, their sweet, medicinal scent designed to purify the air and ease the spirit. Lavender for calm, rosemary for strength, mugwort for protection. The accumulated wisdom of countless grandmothers. Forget everything you know about modern childbirth. The sterile hospital rooms, the monitors and machines, the medical staff in their clean scrubs rushing about with clipboards and urgent efficiency. That world of technological intervention and clinical precision has not yet been imagined. Instead, picture something completely different, something more ancient, more communal, more fundamentally human. This is birth as it was always meant to be, not a medical emergency, but a sacred ritual performed entirely by women, for women, in the warm circle of feminine wisdom and support. The room where you labor is not a hospital ward, but a familiar space, perhaps your own bedchamber, or that of a female relative, transformed for this momentous occasion. Heavy curtains block the windows, creating a cocoon of privacy and warmth. The bed has been pushed aside to make room for the most important piece of furniture, the birthing chair. This is no ordinary seat, but a specially crafted piece of equipment passed down through generations of women. Made of sturdy oak, it sits low to the ground with a curved back that supports your spine and arms that you can grip during the strongest contractions. Most importantly, the seat is horseshoe-shaped, open at the front, allowing your baby to be born naturally downward, with gravity's help rather than against it. Around this chair, your community of women has gathered, not because they've been summoned, but because this is simply how things are done. Your mother is here, if she lives, your sisters, your female neighbors, the women who know you best and love you most. Even women you barely know have come, because birth is women's business, and when a woman labors, other women attend. At the center of this feminine circle stands the most important person in the room, the midwife. She is not young. Youth brings energy but not wisdom, and wisdom is what you need now. Her hair is grey, her hands weathered by decades of catching babies, her eyes bright with the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of births, both easy and difficult. She learned her craft not in books or schools, but at the side of her own mother or grandmother, watching, listening, slowly absorbing the secrets that women have always known about bringing new life into the world. She knows which herbs ease pain, which positions help a difficult baby turn, how to tell by touch whether labor progresses normally or requires intervention. When pain grips you, she doesn't offer chemical relief. Instead, she brews tea from herbs gathered in summer meadows, raspberry leaf to strengthen your womb, chamomile to calm your spirit, perhaps a tiny bit of ergot if labor stalls. Natural medicines whose effects she understands through experience rather than science. She encourages you to move, to find the positions that feel right to your laboring body. Sometimes you squat, supported by the strong arms of the women around you. Sometimes you lean forward, your hands braced against the wall, while someone rubs your back with oil scented with healing herbs. The birthing chair is there when you need it, but you're not confined to any single position. Your body knows what it needs, and these wise women trust that knowledge. The men of your household, your husband, your father, any male relatives or friends, wait outside. This is not their realm, not their mystery to witness. Even if there were male physicians in your town, they would not be admitted to this sacred space. Birth belongs to women. It always has. It always will. And the presence of men would only disturb the ancient rhythms that govern this most feminine of experiences. Hours pass, sometimes many hours, and through it all, the circle of women remains constant. Part 4. Echoes in the silence, the forgotten arts and quiet rebellions. Feel the smooth stone in your hand, a river pebble worn perfectly round by countless years of flowing water, its surface polished to silk by the patient caress of sand and current. It fits your palm like it was made for this purpose, not too large, not too small, heavy enough to do real work but light enough that your hand won't tire during the long hours ahead. Press it against the damp clay surface and begin the rhythmic motion, back and forth, with steady, measured strokes. The stone glides across the wet earth with a soft, whispered sound. Shh, shh, like gentle rain on leaves, like silk being drawn across silk. It's hypnotic, this repetitive motion, this ancient dance between stone and clay that has been performed for thousands of years. Think for a moment about your modern kitchen. Those sleek pans with their miraculous non-stick surfaces, coated with chemicals whose names you can barely pronounce. You crack an egg into the pan, and it slides around like it's dancing on ice. Nothing sticks, nothing burns. Cleanup is effortless. It's a marvel of modern chemistry. Space-age polymers doing what medieval people could only dream of. But medieval potters had their own version of this miracle. Achieved not through chemistry, but through something far more fundamental. Pure, patient, human effort. Picture a potter's workshop, not a clean, modern studio, but a ramshackle building filled with the honest smells of earth and smoke. Clay vessels in various stages of completion line wooden shelves, bowls and jugs and cooking pots waiting their turn at the kiln. In the corner, the potter sits at his wheel, but today, he's not shaping new vessels. Today, he's performing a different kind of magic. In his hands is a cooking pot, freshly thrown, its walls still damp and workable, its surface rough with the texture of raw clay. To most people, it looks finished, a simple, functional vessel ready for the fire. But the potter knows better. He knows that this pot, as it stands, will be a nightmare to cook in. Food will stick to its porous surface, burning and charring, turning every meal into a battle between cook and cookware. So he begins the transformation, taking up his polishing stone, worn smooth by years of use, and placing it against the inside curve of the pot. With slow, deliberate movements, he begins to rub, not randomly, but in careful, overlapping strokes that cover every inch of the interior surface. The work is meditative. Hour after hour of the same motion, the same gentle pressure, the same soft, susurring sound as stone meets clay. To an outsider, it might seem tedious, even pointless. But the potter understands what's happening beneath his stone. With each stroke, he's compressing the clay particles, forcing them closer together, eliminating the tiny gaps and irregularities that would otherwise trap food and moisture. Watch the surface change. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, the rough texture begins to smooth. The dull, matte finish of raw clay slowly gives way to something different. A subtle sheen that catches the light. A smoothness that your fingers can feel even if your eyes can't quite see it. This is friction glazing, the oldest non-stick technology known to humanity. No chemicals, no artificial coatings, just the patient application of pressure and movement to transform the very nature of the clay itself. The potter is literally burnishing the surface, compressing it to a density that approaches stone, creating a barrier that food cannot easily penetrate. Hours pass, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours of continuous polishing for a single pot. When the pot is finally fired in the kiln, this burnished surface becomes permanent, the heat setting the compressed clay into a finish that will last for generations. The result is a cooking vessel that performs almost like a modern non-stick pan. Eggs slide across its surface. Porridge lifts out cleanly. Even the stickiest stews can be cooked without fear of burning. This is a small victory against the tyranny of scorched food. A triumph achieved through patience rather than chemistry, through human skill rather than industrial process. The medieval cook who owned such a pot possessed something genuinely valuable, a tool that could transform the daily struggle of meal preparation into something approaching pleasure. Feel that smooth stone in your hand once more. Imagine the hours of patient work, the meditation of repetitive motion, the satisfaction of watching rough clay transform into something beautiful and functional. This is technology in its purest form. Feel the smooth pebbles between your fingers. 9 small stones worn round by river water, each one fitting perfectly in your palm. They're different colors, some pale grey from the limestone quarry, others dark brown from the creek bed, carefully selected not for beauty but for contrast. When you place one on the stone surface before you, it makes a soft click, not loud enough to disturb anyone, but satisfying in the way that only solid things meeting other solid things can be. Your opponent across from you has his own collection, 9 dried beans perhaps, or small wooden discs carved from a broken tool handle. The important thing is that his pieces look different from yours, that when the game begins, there will be no confusion about which army belongs to whom. Listen to that gentle sound. Click, click, click. As pieces find their places on the board. It's a quiet music, this game, Forget the elaborate board games you know. Those complex affairs with hundreds of pieces, thick rule books, and playing surfaces that cost more than a medieval peasant earned in a month. This is something altogether different. A game so simple that it requires nothing more than a flat surface and 18 small objects, yet so deep that masters can spend lifetimes exploring its possibilities. The board itself is almost absurdly simple. 3 squares nested inside each other, connected by lines that run from the middle of each side to the center. 24 positions in total, marked by scratches in stone or charcoal lines on wood, or sometimes just shallow depressions poked into the dirt with a stick. You could draw it in a minute, memorize it in less time than that, yet it contains enough complexity to entertain the sharpest minds. Picture 2 soldiers on guard duty, standing watch at a castle gate during the long, quiet hours when nothing happens but the passage of time. One has taken his knife and scratched the familiar pattern into a flat stone near their post. The rules are simple enough that they've been passed down by word of mouth for centuries. No need for written instructions when any child can learn by watching. Each player starts with 9 pieces, placing them one by one on any empty point of the board. The goal is to form mills, 3 pieces in a straight line along any of the board's many paths. When you complete a mill, you capture one of your opponent's pieces, removing it from the board forever, weakening his position, bringing yourself closer to victory. But forming mills is easier said than done. Your opponent is trying to block your every move while setting up his own traps, creating a dance of advance and retreat, threat and counter-threat. Watch the shepherd boy on the hillside, his flock grazing peacefully nearby, the afternoon sun warm on his back. He's drawn the board in the dirt with a pointed stick, using white pebbles and dark ones he's collected during his wanderings. This is his entertainment during the long, solitary hours. A way to exercise his mind when his body must remain still and watchful. The game requires no literacy, no ability to read letters or numbers, no formal education of any kind. It's purely visual, purely logical, accessible to anyone who can count to 9 and think ahead. A noble in his castle plays the same game as a beggar in the street. The rules don't change based on social class or education or wealth. Everywhere you look in the medieval world, you find evidence of this quiet passion. Boards scratched into the stones of cathedral steps, carved into tavern tables where ale-drinking patrons passed their evenings, even found in monastery cloisters where monks played between prayers. The game transcended all boundaries, social, economic, religious. In the great hall of a manor house, lords and ladies play on boards of polished wood, using pieces carved from ivory or precious stone. In the village square, peasants gather around boards drawn in the dust, using whatever small objects come to hand. The game is the same. Only the materials change. Feel the tension as the game progresses. The board filling with pieces, the spaces becoming scarce, every move carrying more weight. Your opponent has formed a mill. The satisfying click as he removes one of your pieces from the board. Now you're down to 8 pieces, then 7, the noose tightening around your position. But this is where the game becomes truly interesting. When one player is reduced to just 3 pieces, the rules change. Those final pieces can now fly, jumping to any empty position on the board instead of being forced to move along the connecting lines. Suddenly, a seemingly hopeless position becomes full of possibilities. The underdog gains new mobility, new chances to form mills and stage a comeback. This is chess's humble cousin, lacking the elaborate hierarchy of kings and queens, but possessing its own elegant logic, its strategy distilled to its essence, pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, the ability to think several moves ahead, and breathe in the sweetness. The delicate perfume of rose petals still warm from the morning sun, their fragrance so pure and concentrated that it seems to carry emotions within its very molecules. Feel the soft velvet of the petals between your fingertips, tender as a baby's skin, yet somehow substantial, alive with the memory of earth and rain and careful tending. Each flower holds its own distinct scent, the clean, sharp freshness of lavender, the innocent sweetness of daisies, the heady, almost intoxicating perfume of jasmine blooming in the evening air. There's something magical about flowers, the way they speak to us without words, the way their beauty conveys feelings that language often fails to capture. In our modern world, we give flowers casually, a bunch of roses for Valentine's Day, a bouquet to say thank you or I'm sorry. But we've forgotten that flowers once carried specific, deliberate messages. Most people think of flower language as a Victorian invention. Those elaborate, sentimental customs of the 19th century, when proper ladies and gentlemen communicated through carefully arranged bouquets. But the truth runs much deeper. The idea that flowers could carry meaning, that petals could speak what lips dared not say, stretches back through centuries of human understanding. In the medieval world, where life was governed by strict social rules and religious constraints, where speaking your heart could bring scandal or worse, people needed other ways to communicate the things that mattered most. And so they turned to the garden, to the ancient wisdom that saw meaning in every bloom, significance in every combination of colors and scents. Picture a young woman, perhaps 16, the daughter of a merchant, living in a world where her every move is watched, her every word weighed for propriety. She sits by her window in the early morning light, and there, on the stone sill, she finds a small bundle, one red rose, its petals still tight with morning dew, its thorns carefully removed. Even she, sheltered as she is, knows what this means. The universal symbol of passionate love, the flower that has spoken of desire since ancient times. But this isn't a casual gift. The young man who left it has been careful, deliberate. A single red rose, not the dozens that might seem showy or inappropriate, but one perfect bloom that says everything without saying anything at all. Beside the rose lies a sprig of lavender, those tiny purple flowers that speak of devotion, of faithfulness, of love that will endure beyond passion's first fire. The scent rises as she touches it, clean and honest, the fragrance of constancy itself. He's telling her that his feelings go deeper than mere attraction, that he offers not just love, but loyalty. But what's this third flower? A cheerful yellow daisy with its white petals and bright center. Then she notices something else. The daisy is upside down, its stem pointing toward the sky, its flower head toward the earth. And suddenly she understands. An inverted flower reverses its meaning completely. The daisy speaks not of contempt, but of its opposite, of hope despite obstacles, of love that persists even when the world seems turned upside down. She holds the small bouquet to her face, breathing in the combined scents, rose and lavender and daisy, creating a complex perfume that tells a story no words could convey. He loves her. He will wait for her. He believes that somehow, despite the barriers between them, their story will find a way to continue. That evening, she walks in her father's garden, ostensibly checking on the herb plots, but actually searching for her own flowers to speak with. She finds what she needs, a sprig of rosemary for remembrance, telling him that she thinks of him constantly, a small purple violet, symbol of modesty and faithful love, assuring him that her feelings match his own. She ties them together with a ribbon from her hair, a personal touch that makes the message more intimate, more real. That night, she leaves her response on the garden wall where she knows he'll find it. 3 flowers speaking what her voice cannot say in a world where young women don't declare their feelings openly. This silent conversation continues for weeks, tiny bouquets appearing and disappearing like secrets whispered in the darkness. Sometimes the messages are joyful, bright marigolds for happiness, sweet peas for gratitude. Sometimes they speak of worry, forget-me-nots pleading for constancy during separation, rue expressing regret when meetings must be postponed. Each flower carries its burden of meaning carefully. These weren't random symbols, but a language as precise as any spoken tongue. Yellow roses meant friendship, but red roses meant passion. Pink rosebuds spoke of young love, while full-blown white roses suggested mature devotion. These skills, these habits we've discovered together tonight, they were never just clever tricks or curious historical footnotes. They were something far more profound, a symphony of adaptation, a testament to the remarkable resilience that lives at the very heart of what it means to be human. Think about what we've witnessed, the ability to find warmth in darkness, using nothing more than carefully tended embers carried like precious jewels through the long night, the wisdom to discover nourishment in the wilderness, to see a hollow tree and recognize a refrigerator, to look at a swamp and understand preservation, to touch clay and feel the potential for vessels that would serve for generations. These medieval people faced a world that was often harsh, where winter could mean starvation, where darkness was absolute, where illness struck without warning or easy remedy. Yet they didn't merely survive. They found ways to thrive. They discovered how to make walls that breathed with the seasons, not fighting against nature, but working with it, understanding that flexibility often proves stronger than rigidity. They learned to navigate by sound when sight failed them, to trust their ears as much as their eyes, to read the landscape through the voices of bells and the songs of flowing water. Most remarkably, they found ways to speak what couldn't be spoken. Through the secret language of flowers, through games scratched into stone, through the patient, meditative work of polishing clay until it became something approaching perfection. They understood that life wasn't just about surviving. It was about finding moments of joy, connection, and beauty even in the midst of struggle. And now, as you lie here in the comfort of the 21st century, feel the weight of your blanket against your skin. Notice the softness of your pillow cradling your head. Sense the gentle warmth that surrounds you without any effort on your part. These are luxuries that would have seemed like pure magic to the people we visited tonight. The idea that warmth could flow through your home without anyone tending a fire, that fresh water could appear with the simple turn of a handle, that light could banish darkness at the touch of a switch. Your walls stand strong and straight without you having to mix mud and straw with your own hands. Your food stays fresh without careful planning and preservation. Your nights are filled with gentle illumination rather than absolute darkness. Even the simple act of lying alone in your own bed, in your own private room, would have been an unimaginable luxury to most medieval people. But perhaps Perhaps the greatest lesson isn't about the conveniences we now enjoy, but about something deeper. The recognition that human beings have always found ways to adapt, to create, to make life not just bearable, but meaningful. They live in you too. This ancient wisdom, this ability to make the best of whatever circumstances life presents. When challenges arise in your own life, you carry within you the same creative spirit that learned to carry fire in a bundle of moss, the same patience that spent hours polishing clay into smoothness, the same hope that spoke through flowers when words were not enough. You are connected to this long chain of human experience, part of an unbroken line of people who have faced uncertainty with courage, who have found light in darkness, who have created meaning from the raw materials of existence. Now, let these images begin to fade, like morning mist dissolving in sunlight. Let the sounds of the medieval world grow soft and distant, the crackle of hearth fires, the whisper of wind through wattle and daub walls, the gentle splash of water in wooden tubs. All of it slowly, peacefully, drifting away. There's nothing more you need to do tonight. Nothing more to think about or plan or worry over. You've traveled far from your own time, visited a world so different from your own, and now it's time to let that journey settle into the quiet corners of your mind where dreams are born. Feel your breathing slow, in and out, each breath carrying away the last traces of the day's concerns, each exhale releasing you further into the peaceful darkness that awaits. Your body knows what to do now, how to let go, how to surrender to the ancient rhythm of sleep that has comforted human beings since the very beginning. The medieval world fades now, becoming memory, becoming dream, becoming the soft background whisper of all the lives that have come before yours. But the peace remains, the deep, quiet satisfaction of understanding that you are part of something larger, something enduring, something beautiful. Let sleep come now, gentle as a mother's touch, soft as flower petals, quiet as snow falling on a winter night. There are no more stories to tell, no more mysteries to unravel, just the sweet, simple gift of rest. Sleep well, sleep deeply, and may your dreams be filled with the gentle wisdom of those who came before, and the peaceful certainty that all is well.